Okay, everybody, we're coming down the home stretch for today. Oh my God, we have a lot more people here now. That's good. Hopefully we'll have attendance soon as well. We're going to start the next tutorial. And if you go into the bhacker.com website and under source code examples, so source code examples, which is in the course materials link, the one that we're going to do right now is called using, we're going to skip a couple of them. I want to go down to this one because this one's actually easier than the adventure game or basic source code examples. This one's called using data types, and there's a completed solution for this as well. So there's two. There's a using data types, finished solution, and then using data types. Here's the tutorial. If you click on it, you'll see it's a PDF file. So I clicked on it, so I'm going to leave it here. This one is the currency. This is the temperature conversion program. And there's also a currency conversion version of this. There's a bunch of other different versions of this. This is just like the Hello World we just created, except for now we're going to take some information in. We're going to have two buttons. We're going to convert the information back and forth. And then we have two more labels that we're going to populate with the information that we converted. So you type in 70 degrees Fahrenheit and you get something in Celsius back and forth. And I have a cheat sheet for the math, actually. So this is a step-by-step tutorial, and it's one of the beginner tutorials. So if you don't have a computer with you and you want to do this later, then you can. Otherwise, you can do it right now. And some of the options in here you're going to see are made for the previous version of the API, which has us using this automatic reference counting. We don't need to do that. So what we're going to do is kind of follow this through, and I'll modify this in the future. But for right now, this is what we have to work with. So we'll get this done. So step number one, we're going to open up a new single view application and call it converter or something like that. We don't have to worry about using automatic reference counting, and we have to use a storyboard. We don't have any other choice anymore, so we'll be using a storyboard. Tonight I'm going to try and figure out how to backdate this and open up previous project types, although I seriously doubt I'm going to be able to do that because Apple likes us to use the most current version of everything. In fact, they won't even let you install this anymore unless you have the current OS X version, which is 10.8 something. Long story short, I don't think I'm going to get anywhere with it. I'm stuck with 7, which is actually kind of a good thing. It's going to force me to learn it. So anyway, create a new Xcode project. This stuff is still the same. A single view application is what we want. Go ahead and click on next. Call this one, I'm going to call this one converter. Converter, converter. Or you can call it temperatures. Actually, I like temperatures better. Let's call it temperatures. Temperatures, there we go. Not that I'm going to save it. I'm just going to throw it away when I'm done with it. So I'm going to do another iPhone. And if you notice, this actually kind of stays. So once you put in the information one time, we have everything loaded up the next time. So it automatically gives us my defaults. There's no more reference counting or anything like that. So I'm just going to go and press next. And I'm going to save it on the desktop. Lo and behold, it's the same thing we did a few minutes ago, actually. So I'm going to immediately, because I like working with the GUI first, immediately I'm going to click on the main storyboard, and I've got back to my storyboard screen. I like to move it over to the left-hand side so I can get more real estate on the screen. I don't know, just my particular way of doing it. So now I'm going to go back to my tutorial and see what step 2 is going to have me do. Let's see, I'm going to add 2 buttons. Well, I'm going to create the screen right here. I'm going to add 2 buttons and a text field and a label to the ViewController.xib file. And you're going to notice we don't have a ViewController.xib file. We have a main storyboard, because it won't let me use anything outside of the storyboard. So I'm stuck with the storyboard. I think they're phasing out the XIB files. XIB stands for Xcode Interface Builder. Why they keep the same name everywhere else, don't know. But anyway, we're stuck with the storyboard, so let's just get used to it. I'm going to click on my storyboard, and before I was able to actually change the type of window that I have, but I'm stuck with 7. So I can't change the... I'm noticing that I can't change it back either, because I want to say, well, maybe I can change it back to a non-retina, like an earlier version of it. Nope, not letting me. All right, so I'm going to click on the bottom down here. If you missed it before, it's on the lower right-hand corner of the window, and type in button. and then I see my options for button. So it intercepts the touch events and sends an action message to the target object when it's tapped. So I'm going to put a button right here. Excuse me. Much better. Okay. So let's put 2 of them on here. So I got 2 buttons. I'm actually just going to take a look here again and see what this thing is supposed to look like. The buttons say convert to C and convert to F. So 2 Celsius, 2 Fahrenheit. I don't like the white background. I changed the background to green because I like green. And I make this text red. You can be creative and do whatever you want. Okay, there we go. Actually, you can put images on your buttons if you want. Why I don't get a button that looks like a button, I don't know. I'm not getting a button that looks like a button. Anyway, pretty sure there's a way of making it look like an old button. Something I'm going to have to explore. Because these buttons look like old buttons. This is an old screenshot from 6.0. Anyway.
Is it like button background?
Maybe.
I might be seeing.
Let's take a look here. Shadow background, image background. Now that's for an image background on the button, which is weird. Now let's take a look at the type. I can go to custom detailed disclosure. Ooh, an eye. Info. Add contact.
Yeah.
Custom. No, it's not giving me the
Do
background.
the bar button
Huh?
What if you select the bar button icon?
at the bottom. Yeah.
Second.
This one here?
Yeah.
Then it puts it on the bar.
Oh.
What?
It's a bar button. It goes on the status bar on the bottom of the screen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. This is bordered. You can do plain, not bordered. Where's my button? There's my button. Let's go back to my attributes here. Oh, let's go back on custom. How come I lost my text on my button? Where'd my button go?
It's at the bottom item.
Alright, well, let's just put it back. I'll just leave it alone right now. I'll explore how to put the button. I'm sure there's probably a way of putting the button text back on there. Let me change this back to bread. Okay, so I have 2 buttons. Now I want to put a text field. So I'm going to write in text. And I have a text field. And I'm going to put a text field right here. Text field just takes in text. Now, say I still got the text field. It looks like a text field. That's good. What else do I need? I need a convert temperature, little titles, but I don't really, Alright, and then two guys down here, C and an F. Alright, so it looks like 1, 2, 3 more labels. So we're going to put one up here. This is going to be a C to F conversion. Or how about I say convert temperatures. See, the other one used to center it for you. It doesn't even do that anymore. Actually, this is a lot better than some of the other versions of Xcode. They were a lot less user-friendly, believe it or not. It's gotten better over the years. It's just I need to adapt. I'm going to make sure that these just say label. They're going to print the converted amount. So if the user types something in here and I press to C, it changes it to C. There's a fundamental flaw with this because it doesn't know this is a C or an F. It's just Fahrenheit or Celsius. So we could fix it, or I could just leave the flaw in here and you can fix it on your own, actually. But you'll see the flaw in a few minutes. The logic is kind of like, what are we starting with? Are we starting with Celsius, or are we starting with Fahrenheit? And I'm going to put a 70 degrees in here and go to Fahrenheit. Am I going to get 70 degrees Fahrenheit? No, I'm going to get something that's weird. So you'll see what I'm talking about in a few minutes. But you have to actually manually put in a Celsius degree to get a Fahrenheit out of it. That makes sense. So let's see what we got here. That looks pretty good. Now we're going to wire the elements to the ViewController.h file by doing a control plus a drag. Drag the two labels. Call them 2C and 2F. These are the two labels. So the two labels are 2C and 2F, and then connection looks like this. These are the outlets that say 2C and 2F. Well, this is the 2C and 2F. Oh, excuse me. The two labels. This would be the label. These are the labels I was talking about here. Because we're going to write to those labels. Let's just label them 2C. This is the other thing I have a tendency to do. I try to make things label things so I can remember what they are in the code. So this is the label that's going to show up after I press the 2 Fahrenheit button. I know it doesn't look like a button, but it is a button. And then this is the one that goes to show up here. So I'm going to press this tuxedo item up here. I'm going to get rid of the sidebar because I don't need that. I have my GUI populated already. So I'm going to click on the tuxedo. And and I got the .m, which is weird because I want the .h. So I'm going to go back to the .h. And I'm going to make this move over a little bit. There we go. So just the same way as we did before, I'm going to control drag to make two properties, one of the 2C's and one of the 2F's. So just like the instruction said, I'm pressing down the control button. Oops. I'm clicking on the item I want, making it smaller again. What happened? I see we're going to have a bug fix release coming out soon. Because the label doesn't resize. Oh yeah, it did. It did that time. It should go right to left, left to right. I was only able to do it, and I don't know how it got that big to begin with. I'm clicking on the label and pressing down the control button. Ah, Jesus. Let's see. Hello, click on the label, press the up control button, and I'm dragging it over here. That time it worked. In between the interface and the end, and I'm going to call it 2C. It's a UI label. Press connect. You could also type it in here. I don't know how many people want to type it, but you could type it in here and drag it that way. We saw it work a few minutes ago, actually. I'm going to do the same thing with this one. And this one's going to be called 2F. So we're good. So far, so good. That's going to be the output. Let's see. Now, we want to control drag the text field to the view controller and call that input. So let's see, that's good. So here's a text field, and I'm going to pressing down the control button, and I'm dragging it over here, and this one's going to be called input. It doesn't really matter what you call them, really, as long as you remember. So, and this one is a UI text field, which is actually kind of funny because they got rid of most of the UI terminology, but they're still calling it a UI. Why don't you just call it a text field if you're just going to rename it to a text field? So, oops. Let's try to move that over a little bit. All right, so I'm going to click back on my storyboard. There we go. Let's see. So now I'm checking and double checking and triple checking and making sure I got everything set correctly. So I have my properties. I usually put my properties at the top. You don't have to, but I put mine on the top. Some people have them scattered all over the place in the code, and it's a little hard to find them when you want to go see what you're looking at. So let's see, now I'm going to do the touchdown events for the two buttons, and one of them is going to be convert C and the other one's going to be convert F. So I have two buttons, so I'm going to right mouse click, and I'm going to put those together. And I'm going to control drag the touchdown events. Actually, I don't have to control drag it, which is inconsistent now. It's working without the control key because I have one hand in my pocket. And this one's going to be convert convert to, was this one the C? Well, it is. If it isn't, it is now. So, and I'm going to change the type. I like to use the button type, UI button. You can leave it on ID if you want. But if I do that, then I actually see UI button instead of ID on here. And then when I look at it later, I go, oh, that's a button. If I see ID on everything, it's like, what is it? I don't know what it is. So I do that because I can't remember what the item is. Some people use the word button in the name, like convert to Celsius button, so, or something like that. But anyway, you don't have to. A touchdown event here, I'm going to drag it over here, and this one's going to be called convert to F. Doesn't really matter if you spell it right. I don't know if I spelled it right or not. Convert to F, it's okay. It's close enough for government work. Here we go. Now I have the 2 button actions. So I think I'm pretty much done. Let me just double check real quick here. And pretty much done with this step here. Now I've got convert F and convert C. Now I'm going to switch over to the ViewController.m file and modify that one. Is this the attendance person? Oh, perfect. Let me just pause my video. So let me resume. So we were about ready to switch over to the .m file. So just refresh your memory. We created 3 properties, one for each one of the labels, and then one for the text box. We created 2 IB actions for the 2 buttons. After I do this about 5 more times, it'll go, oh yeah. It starts sinking in. So that's why I repeat all this stuff. So we have the 2 IB actions, and you know that the data type is an IB action here, because we know this is where we put the data type in on the method, and the methods are called. These are the method names, and we're getting it from sender, which is the input, it's the parameters coming through. That behavior you just sort of have to take for granted. It's just what happens. So let me refresh my memory here on the names of these guys. We have a 2C, a 2F, and an input, because I need to write some synthesizers for that. So the first thing I do is I switch over to the .m file. And I come underneath where it says at implementation, and I always get rid of this, but it's kind of a bad practice to get rid of the at interface and at end, because this can be used over here. You can add stuff to it that's not visible outside of the public interface. This is actually, the .h is a public interface file. The one that you get in the .m is a private interface file. It's only visible to the implementation. It's not part of the object creation. But we're not going to use it right now, so I'm just going to get it out of the way. So that's why I delete it all the time. We'll use it later on in the course, but we're not using it today. So, anyway, long story short, I'm going to go at synthesize. If I type in the at symbol, I automatically get this if I have this feature turned on, and then you're going to have it by default. You install everything, and then you just add the list. So we have a 2, and if you start typing, you say, oh, look at that, there's a label, it says 2C on it. You press return, and you put a comma in here, you go, well, let's see. How about 2F? Okay, got that one. What about input? Oops. Input. There we go, input. So I'm doing this because I want setters and getters for everything. This automatically creates all those methods for us. If we were writing Java and we were using Eclipse, we have a menu item. It says create my setters and getters, create my constructors. The Xcode people, they say, why in the world have a menu item to do it? Why stick it in the code? Just property synthesize it. If you use this technique, you get it anyway. Less bulk in the code, and then makes it easier to look at. So you just have to know, well, property is a property of the object. To synthesize it, why do they use the word synthesize? I don't know. Synthesize it. It's like synthesizing music. I don't know. It transforms it, manipulates it. I don't know. I don't know the logic with that. I'm not a music. Well, I am sort of a music person, but I don't use synthesizers. So, long story short, it manipulates it. I think. I don't know. But we're going to create setters and getters. We got those 3 items in there. So let's take a look here. See what else we're supposed to do. Input. Okay, that's good. Doesn't really matter what order you put them in. You can actually put them in 3 different lines if you want to. You can have more than one synthesize. I can go like this and go synthesize input. And then I already have input up here, so I'll take input off of here, because otherwise it's going to give me an error message. So now this works. So I'll just leave it like that. I can put, and that's kind of like saying integer I, integer A, integer B, integer C, integer D. Instead of going integer I, comma, A, B, C, D, E, with commas, same concept actually. So you can do it in 5 different lines, you can do it in 1. So anyway.
Do you have something similar for buttons too?
We don't have to, unless we want to change, we can create a synthesize for a button if we do a property for a button. In here, we don't care. But let's say, for example, if I clicked on the button, I wanted the button to disable, then I'd have to create a property for the button, and then I'd have to synthesize it. Let's do it just for kicks.
Because to fix the problem, right, what you said, you can disable the button.
We could change the button, and we could disable the button. When we pressed it, if we did that, I have the button highlighted here actually. Instead of right mouse clicking on that button and selecting one of these actions, I just create a property out of it. I did that actually in the last example. I did that, I just control drag it, put it over here, and put it under here. I'm going to say button property, button prop. And then if that's the case, then over here I wanted to use the button. I come over here and I just add button prop to it. And now I synthesize it. Now I have setters and getters for it. But now I also made it visible. So I can say button prop dot something, you know, change, set visibility to false or something. And those properties that I'm going to change, if I click on the button and I open up this right-hand panel over here, are all this stuff. So I can set the font. I can set, no, they changed some of these image properties on me. And I'm sure that iOS 7 has some different image properties, excuse me, some different button properties, because the button's looking different to me from a visual perspective. But we used to be able to enable, disable, change an image, highlight it, unhighlight it, you know, to make it look like, oh, something happened to that button, you know, so we can change it.
Visual Studio.
Yeah, very similar to Visual Studio. If you've ever worked with that, it's the same kind of concept. All right, so that's one way we could fix. We can fix the functionality if we wanted to. So, all right, so let's move on. So we synthesized it, and now we have to add the code. And the code that we're going to add, I'm going to cut and paste it and stick it in one of the buttons so you can sort of see what we're looking at. And this is really the reason why we're doing this. This tutorial is to kind of get a feel for this Objective-C code. And this one here is going to be the convert to Celsius. So convert to Celsius formula. I paste the code in here. I'm going to see a bunch of formatting problems, but it's not a big problem. I'm going to create a string, and the string is going to be to Celsius, and the string is going to be equal to the input text. So I'm going to talk while I'm fixing the formatting here. So what about the get text? People go, oh, text, get text, set text. They took the get out. They said, what do you want? Just the text? Here's the text. So if you put in get text here, because remember before I typed in set text, and I put a colon in there and I put the text I wanted to set to, I'm going to have a problem if I do that. Instead, it's going to tell me get text doesn't exist. No visible interface for UI interface that with get text on it. Instead, they abbreviated it and they just said text. So it's just text, which is kind of inconsistent. But this is going to run a get text for us. What does it actually return? It's returning the text property of the and this is the input field here. We called it input when we synthesized it. It's up here. It's called input. So input, this is really saying, give me the text. And then I'm going to create a double, and the double is going to be called C. And it's going to be equal to 5.0 divided by 9.0 times this number we got here. But we're going to take the number and we're going to convert the number to a double. So we have this little thing here, it says double value. So I took the double value. This is a string. So in Java we go to float, to double, to integer. In Objective-C we say, well, just give me double value. I can say int value, float value, and I'm taking the value of to Celsius is a string. So this is how you're going to convert a string to a numeric value. So why didn't go to double? Instead they have double value. So unfortunately, every new programming language you have to get used to the syntax, but this one is double value, integer value, float value, string value. Returns the value in whatever format you ask for it in. So we're going to take the double value, and then we're going to take that after we times it by 5.0 divided by 9.9. It's kind of a hokey formula, minus 32. And then that's the end of the formula. So that's our C. And then we're going to do a toText. And I did this on purpose, actually, to show you that you can say .text. So toC, that's this one guy over here, .text. And you're going to be like, what? We're setting the property .text. So you can use the dot notation. In the other example I gave you a few minutes ago, I said set text. And I used a label and I said to set the text to something. Now I'm just going to go dot text, and the dot text is going to be equal to, now I have to set it to a string. So it's an NS string, which I have to alloc. So it's going to be alloced, and then it's going to be initialized with a format, and the initialized format, it's going to be the decimal conversion to dot, so we're going to get a whole number out of this, 2.0, float value. That might look familiar. It's from C++. It's from C, actually. It's the conversion factor. That actually is nothing more than taking, oops, I took away the C, I think. There we go. And you're looking at this going, well, this is a double. How can I made it a float? And I used a precision value on a float and a double. Well, it's actually the same thing-ish. It automatically will get converted for you. So this is going to say, after we did this calculation, we're going to round it to 2.0. So we're going to get 45.9 or something, or 70.0 or something, and that's going to come out of it. And it's going to be C that's formatted that way. And the init with formatted is an initializer. It's an initializer for an NS string. And the NS string is what we're going to be allocing, and we're setting the text to that. So we're changing the text property that wants to be a string, and we're changing it to this string here that we created. And you're wondering, well, why in the world are we doing all that stuff? Unfortunately, this is one of the cons. All the conversion that goes on, it's safer because we're doing an explicit allocation of a string, and we're taking the string and we're creating it, initializing it with the format of this float that's converted. It's a safer conversion. So in languages like C++, we have what's called type conversions. We can take a string and just go int, automatically converts it, right? Not so safe. What if the string doesn't convert to an int? What if it's not an integer value and it says hello world or something and it doesn't say 11 or something on it? You're going to have a problem with it. It's unreliable. So I'm saying this is a little safer because you're initializing it with a format. The format's going to be a conversion on a value that's going to be a float value. And then you're going to say, well, allocate a string, copy the value into a string. Long story short, it's accomplishing the same task. There's more steps in it. It's supposed to be, I don't know, it's dynamically creating a string, and then you're taking the string and you're adding it to the property. So if this actually, if I wanted to change this, I can say toC.text, change the text. I can go toC.font, toC.style. Same thing I would do with the button. So if I wanted to disable the button, I'd say the button name, what was the button name? Buttonprop.text. And change the text of the button. Change the text of the property. How are you going to know what all those properties are? Google it. And you get all the button properties. And right now I'm almost afraid to try because I don't know what they changed with those button properties. The button properties look different than they did in 6.0. I'll find out for tomorrow. And then we can change the button properties to make it disabled, which would solve the problem actually. Well, part of the problem. So let's cut the code in, and we'll put the code in for... because I'm too lazy, I'm just going to cut and paste it. This is the end of the tutorial, actually. And, oops, purple cutting and pasting. And I'll show you something else here. I'm just not going to edit it. I'm just going to leave it as is when I paste it in here, which means you can write this any way you want. You can just have it look like that. kind of sloppy later on down the road. So I don't know. I'm gonna leave it like that though, just to demonstrate a point to you. I cleaned it up here, but it's just like C or C++. It's character driven. Doesn't matter how many spaces you put in there and how you format it. Doesn't really matter. So use any formatting style that you like. You don't have to indent things. You don't have to do anything with it. Unlike some scripting languages like Python and stuff that look for an indentation, or they look for, you know, spacing, or you know, you have to put something at the top of the file, at the bottom of the file, or whatever you have to do with it. You know, not Python in general, but scripting languages that look at spacing. This doesn't, and this is not a scripting language. It doesn't really matter. Anyway, so I believe our program is complete, but just let me take a quick look here to see if I think I'm at the end. Actually, run the program and you're done. So let's take a look here. If I run it, I can see that, let's see, do we know any Fahrenheits and Celsiuses from people from, whoops, here's the top. Convert temperatures. So I type in the little box and my little keyboard comes up. My screen's a little too small for this. So I'm going to use my keyboard actually and type in 70 degrees. And I'm going to assume that I'm typing in a Fahrenheit. So I'm going to click on the Celsius and I got 21. I know that one. I can remember from high school chemistry or physics or whatever that was. So then now if I click on the Fahrenheit, if I have a 70, well, say if I put 21 in here, I can go to Fahrenheit and I get 70. So. But you know, if you click into Fahrenheit now, oops, let's see, Celsius, -6. So let's go, -6, Fahrenheit, 21. It does work. So, but it's kind of hokey because you got to know what is this, Fahrenheit or Celsius. So if you put a little button here, maybe toggle it, or maybe, how would you know though? If I typed in 70, and you know, how do I know? Oh, I got some interesting number here to Fahrenheit. That was actually, I think the field is actually too small. Let's take a look here. Either that or it sprung a little error message out, maybe. No, it's showing negative numbers. Let's make that a little bit bigger and see what happens. I'm thinking the user interface could probably be improved a little bit. So we're already in Fahrenheit, 158. So the number was too big for the size of the field that I had for the label. So. Anyway, I guess you could improve the UI. Long story short.
Change the background for the button.
Change the background for the button? Oh, let's take a look. Did you figure out how to do it? Do you have a Mac? Oh, good. Oh, perfect. So there's my button. Now we got to change the background. It used to be like a brown color or a white color or something. So let's take a look here. Oops, the button. That is the button. So that's the text color. We have the background button on the bottom. Ah, background color. Let's put it on white color. Ah, nice. And that's a square though. They used to have rounded rectangular.
Like a button, you should have an image actually. Put
Huh?
an image and change the text.
You know what? Wait a minute. Round. Round. No more round rectangular button. They used to have a round rectangular button. No round rec.
You can use an image actually. Button image.
I know, we did that in the first one. The little picture of the whatever. But what if people don't use buttons anymore? I guess buttons look primitive. I don't know. People don't like buttons. I like buttons. Maybe there's one here that says hidden. Oh, wait a minute. That's the form. Let's see. If we click on, let's see. I'll leave this alone. If I click on the 2 Fahrenheit, let's take the visible. I want to see if any of these old properties I remember actually work. So, actually, another way you can possibly do this is poke through this. So after clicking on the 2 Fahrenheit button, well, let's take the 2 Celsius button because the 2 Fahrenheit code is kind of sloppy. So I'm going to say the 2C text. No, it's not the button. It's going to be the button. Which button would we create? Actually, we created a button property. Which one was it?
Convert C.
Well, I can find out real quick, actually. The property that we created for the button, oh, it was the 2C button. So we created a property for one of the buttons, the 2C button. So I'm going to come in here into the M here. And when we click on the 2C button, it actually, ironically, this one's called property, so button prop. Because we're no longer looking at the behavior, we want to look at the button prop. So I type in button prop, and it fixes it for me. If I put the dot in there, then I'm going to see, if I scroll down far enough, I should see text in there. I should see title, current title, enabled. I should also see a disabled in here. Hidden. You can put a hidden on there. I think it has to go equals true. I think I have to make it equal true. Let's just say, yeah. So we're going to hide the convert C button when we press the button. If I've got this correct. So let's see what happens. Which, again, is kind of screwy behavior. But, huh?
We should be changing the button.
I just want to show you can do something with the button. So what was it before? We're going to put a 70 in here. So now when I click on this button, it should go away. It went away. Because it's now, the visibility is now false. I did that for a reason to show you that we're treating this button like a property. We moved it over to the .h file just to refresh your memory. We synthesized it. It's called button property. So ironically, in the button itself, and the action, the IB actions convert C, we wired that by wiring the IB action of the button. We also changed the button property to hidden to true, which used to be what happened in the old days. So that behavior, so probably some of the old stuff still works with it, is what I'm thinking. We just have some new features of it. Before we had like a round rectangular button, now we just have a button. So kind of sad. I like the round rectangular. I'm pretty sure it might be coming back, or maybe it's done here. It's just called something else right now. I haven't found it yet. All right, so that's the temperature control. And if you really want to learn this stuff, and if you've done this, at this point, what you should be trying to do is playing around with the properties, play around with the look and feel, play around with the functionality. At this point, you have sort of some working stuff to work with. If you don't have a computer with you, no problem. If you didn't figure out how to do this tutorial, no problem. It's on bhacker.com. If you want to do the old tutorial, if you download it and install it, it's going to give you a slightly different look and feel. Let me just download it. I don't think I have it installed. This is the one called using data types. Finished product. Oops.
So how do you get to that?
This one is at the bhacker.com website, which is in Objective-C, which is, if you go into fall 2013, let's go back to the main. Oops. Fall 2013. Objective-C programming. Power source code examples. Source code examples, yeah. And this one's called using data types. The finished product, just to show you real quick, just so there's no confusion. Thought I saved this sucker. I think I did. Here, I got it saved a couple of times. It's built with a 6.0 or 6.5 point something. If you skip this and don't upgrade the project type, you're going to get the XIB file. So if you want to see what it used to look like, open up this guy. It's still compatible. It still seems to work. But now the file is called XIB instead of storyboard. Those are my round rectangular buttons, but I don't have them in here anymore. No button. Huh. But if I run it, it looks like a, oh, it's going to run it in a 6.0, so it's good. It's a 6.0 project. I'm going to see the old emulator. I like the old emulator look better. Why did they get rid of it? I don't know. So it'll load up any moment now. The other one does load faster. So you can do the same thing. But you get the older looking -6. Wait a minute. 70. 21. There we go. There we go. So you can mess around with this project, and you can see it from the. If you don't like the 7, you can load it up. I don't know how to create a 6 without creating a 7 first. I don't know how to convert it. I know how to convert it backwards, but I'm still not getting, like this guy here is not in here. It's not my library. So, but my options for running it gave me 6 and 6.1, which is cool. But anyway, maybe I don't want to use the old XIB, and maybe I don't want to use the old emulator, and I want to upgrade. I'm forced to anyway, so. Long story short, that's it. So tomorrow we meet at 9 o'clock in the morning, and unfortunately, maybe some of you will have your computers ready to go. Do you? Yours still was working. So.
I couldn't download Xcode.
Well, work on it overnight, and I'll see you tomorrow at 9. We're all done for today. So we'll take our last break right now.